It's just a hair after 7. Now it's back on. Okay. Okay. Now it's a hair after 7, but we'll call this meeting to order. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight and let them finish a little bit of business.
Slam the gavel, man. Give him the gavel. Give him the gavel.
Okay.
Not what's going on in your neighborhood.
I think we're close enough. All right, we'll go to the first item on the agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody would please rise with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And if you'll bow your heads and pray with me, I'll lead us in invocation. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to meet together tonight here and gather on behalf of the town. We'd like to ask for your blessing over this meeting and like to ask for your guidance and direction in the decisions we make. For it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, item number 3, we have a swearing in of new planning board member Tisha Lowe. I guess Shelley, you're handling this?
Repeat after me. I, Tisha Lowe,
I, Tisha Lowe,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution
the Constitution,
and laws of the United States
the laws of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
the Constitution and the laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as a Town of Rolesville
as the Town of Roseville
Planning Board member,
Planning Board member.
so help me God.
So help me God. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome. All right, number 4 on the agenda is the election of a chair and vice chair of the planning board. Guess we would open the floor first for nominations for the chair.
Yeah, I guess we're Mr. Vice Chairman right now. So, Mr. Vice Chairman, I would like to go ahead and make a motion to nominate Mike Moss as the new chair for the Planning Board Committee.
I will second that.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None, glad to hear. And thank you for your nomination. And
Thank you for taking it.
Thank you. All right. And
Comes with more pay, right?
yeah, double it.
Double it?
All right. Now we'll open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, no, Mr. Chairman, right? Would it be possible to table this till next meeting, or do we have to do that tonight, since we're short one member?
Nominate someone who's not here.
Can you? Okay. All right. I was going to nominate Davian Cross for vice chair. I'm not sure how he feels about that. I haven't had a conversation with him, but yeah.
I think according to Shelley, if we vote for him, he decides not to, we can re-vote at next meeting if he decides not to accept.
Okay.
All
I'll
right,
go
so we
ahead
have a
and make
nomination.
Yep.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. I'm sure Mr. Cross will be happy.
Voluntold in the room.
Yes. All right. Number 5 on the agenda is the approval of the December 19th planning board minutes. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review those.
I see one correction under the Tom's Creek item B. It should be net number of the park and open space acreage. It said net gross, and that would be kind of an oxymoron, net gross. So I think it should just say net.
All right.
And then on that same section, 6A, I was particularly interested in hoping the developer would explore a second entrance on Forestville Road, not just the impact on those two roads, but I was more interested in hoping they would explore a second entrance. I don't know if that requires another line item or a modification to that one, but that was particularly what I was commenting on. Thanks. I have none other comments.
All right. Any other corrections need to be made?
There was also an item about them doing, I'm guessing F, is that flow and sedimentation in Tuckahoe, particularly the wells? Can we make that specific? It says Tuckahoe wells, they were going to address that.
Mr. Chairman, here no further changes to the minutes from last month's meeting. I'd like to make a recommendation to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to the regular agenda items. First item on the agenda is MA 2207, 503 South Main Street, map amendment for rezoning. And before you get started, what's that? Okay, I need to recuse myself on this project as
Yes.
I'm the surveyor of record.
Yes.
Who will fill in my spot temporarily?
Is there someone that would be willing to serve as the chair right now, just for this?
I nominate Donnie.
Donnie, would you feel comfortable for this one?
Do I need to go to the audience or? Just-
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'll turn the chair over to Mr. Lawrence right now. It's all yours.
Thank you, sir.
And if it's all right with the chair and the stand-in chair, I'd like to make a note about the fact that the Toms Creek case is not on the agenda, because I recognize some of our audience members from being interested in that case. And one of the representatives for the property owner contacted me and asked that the case be postponed to February because they are still working on answering your questions from the last meeting. Remember, you all gave them, they're in the minutes, I don't remember them off the top of my head, 6 different questions that you would like answers to, and they're still working on that. I know they're working on getting some survey information related to Harvest Moon Trading and the road improvements there to help gain some understanding with that. So that's why it's not on the agenda tonight.
Okay. Did you say there's members here that are here for
Yes,
Tom's Creek?
I recognized, well, Kelly's here, and I recognize the other ladies
I guess-
from Tom's Creek.
They're free to go or be dismissed
Yeah.
unless you want to just stay, since that's not on the agenda for tonight. Just,
I am
that's
sorry
totally
I
up to
didn't
you.
let you know, because unless you're having fun
We might
anyway.
still want to give them, opportunity to speak in case they can't attend next month.
Okay, so the question is, would they be able to speak even though we're not talking about that tonight? Or we want to wait till next month?
It would be better to wait until next
that?
month, yeah,
Okay,
because
I
to
agree.
keep it contained. Because
Okay.
I know they'd be interested in the answers that the applicant team is bringing back.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for the update.
Sure.
Thank you for coming too. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So this is map amendment 2207, 503 South Main Street, kind of across the street from here. The property owner applicant is Toy Storage LLC. The property is 1.8 acres, and the request is to change the zoning from residential low and residential and planned unit development to general commercial conditional zoning district. And you did see this case before, and you all gave it a favorable recommendation. And then the case went to the town board, and the town board wasn't comfortable with the case not having conditions. It was a straight rezoning request before, and the town board suggested to the applicant that they look at adding a condition or conditions and bring it back. So that is why we are back again, because it becomes a new case with the change from being a straight rezoning to a conditional rezoning. So you'll be familiar with it, except for Ms. Lowe and Mr. Verstegen. But we'll go through it so everyone is on the same page. And here is the vicinity map. Again, the site is kind of across the street in front of Storage Max. It's at the intersection of Wall Creek Drive and, I'll put my thing on. Here, it's at the Red Note site, Wall Creek Drive and South Main Street. Here is a zoom in of the property. The building that was on the site was fairly recently demolished, and it does have the pretty tree up at the front. The existing zoning is residential low and where the darker yellow is, and then residential and planned unit development where the lighter yellow is, so it's a split zone piece of property. And the applicant is requesting to change it to general commercial. The future land use designation, as per our comprehensive plan, is commercial, so the applicant's request is consistent with our future land use plan. Another plan to bring in that's under the comprehensive plan umbrella is our Main Street Vision Plan. That was developed in 2018, and the purpose of that plan was to help us grow, reestablish a true town center, and keep our Main Street thriving. And there's a principle and two goals to pull out from that plan to consider when looking at this case. First, a principle from the plan is to support quality development and redevelopment in the Main Street corridor. And two goals, reestablish a town center and retain and respect the small town feel. So you're usually used to seeing a traffic impact analysis, and with this case, we chose to delay the traffic impact analysis until the time of the site plan, since this zoning case does not include a concept plan or site plan, so we thought it would be more helpful at a later stage. Plus, this is in the Main Street corridor, and we know what's happening with Main Street. Road improvements in that area are known at this time. The applicant has added a condition that prohibits 13 uses that are in general commercial. So if you just look at the general commercial district, there are 37 uses that are allowed by right and 8 uses that are allowed by special use permit. So to narrow that down, this came from a suggestion from the town board, to narrow that down, the applicant is volunteering to prohibit the 13 uses in this table: daycare, urgent care, vehicle sales, water storage tank, recreation, funeral home, utility, car wash, school, brewery, retail sales, community or shopping center. So that is what's new with this case that you're seeing this evening.
Just out of curiosity, does preschool count as daycare or no?
I would count it.
Okay. It's not clear.
Okay, we can, I would consider a preschool a daycare, same kind of thing. But sure, if it's not spelled out, that's
I don't know if
something
that was
can
the
be clarified.
desire, right, but it looks like those type of things are no school, no daycare, didn't want a high traffic
Yes,
type of
yes,
spot.
yes.
That would be, to me, people lining up, driving in, dropping off,
Yes.
lining up, picking up, same sort of thought.
So that, I guess they're trying to keep that from happening, so that's a good thing. So general commercial is the predominant zoning district for non-residential properties along Main Street, and that zoning designation aligns with our Main Street Vision Plan. And adding the condition that I shared with you just now prohibits some of the more impactful uses. So staff does recommend approval of this rezoning request. And before we get to that, the applicant is here and would like to give a brief presentation. And from what I understand, they would like to add a couple of conditions. So do you have any questions of me before we let the applicant come up? Okay.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, that'd be fine.
My name's Keith Gettle. I'm the civil engineer for the client, and the only real presentation is we want to add 2 more items to the exclusions that have been presented. We had a neighborhood meeting last Wednesday and with residents from Wall Creek, and they raised a couple of things that we want to add to this list, and one of them is a bar. No, I take that back, nightclub. And the other is a tattoo parlor. So we're going to add those 2 items to the list that we currently, I guess you said 13, right, Mary? So now it'll be 15. 15, yeah, to the list. That was it.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments on this
We can,
particular one?
we can-
Did anybody sign up or anything? No? Okay.
Right.
All right, this floor is open for any further discussion. Anybody have any further discussion on this?
Meredith, this list was from the town itself, the board itself, the town board. They were the ones who picked these out together?
They did, no, they just said you need to come back with some
Some-
things excluded.
Okay.
But we did say bar, though, so I was surprised it didn't make the cut.
Oh, brewery distilleries on there, but now they, Mr. Gettle added bar nightclub.
Is electronic gaming operations, is that into that?
That is actually not allowed in general commercial. That is only
Okay.
allowed in industrial.
Okay, I'm looking at 5.14 in commercial principal uses.
Just for clarification, it's for traffic purposes? The reason why we have these exclusions?
For multiple reasons. That is one, what Mr. Schwartz mentioned about the schools. Yes, that's a high traffic generator. I think the town board voiced concerns about uses that might not be activating the space for pedestrians or too intense for that particular area. You know, like a car, you know, if you're in the Main Street corridor, you probably don't want to see a car wash. You'd rather see something else besides a car wash, because people aren't going to walk and hang out at a car wash, you know. At least you hope not.
Anybody else?
Anybody have any further questions from the planning board?
Good. So, Mr. Acting Chairman,
All right.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve MA 22-07, 503 South Main Street rezoning from residential to commercial conditional access. Conditional zoning, sorry.
Do we need to add in the two extra, not bar nightclub, that two conditions?
True. So with additional conditions stipulated by the applicant.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have, all in favor? Say aye.
I'll second.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so guess we're approved.
We gotta
And any
vote.
any noes? Nays? Yeah, any further discussion? Any? Yeah. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Any opposed?
noes? Nays? Okay, hearing none. Thank you. All right,
Pass the gavel back.
there you go. Give it back to Mike. We call Mike back.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Yes, sir.
Okay, on to regular agenda, item number 2, TA 2301, the LDO Round 4 notification letter requirements. All right, it's all yours, Meredith.
Great, thank you. So this is the fourth round of land development ordinance technical amendments. And this one is going to be a quick round, we hope. And it is about notification requirements for neighborhood meetings and legislative hearings, as well as one cleanup item. So some background, the town board asked staff to revisit the notification distance for the town of Rolesville, and just some history on that. In February 2019, before I came on board, the notification distance was changed from 100 feet to 200 feet. And just a note, general statutes require notification of adjacent properties only. So that 100 feet could have been more, but the 200 feet was likely more than what is required by law. And back when we did LDO Run 1, we discussed the notification distance again. And I had this slide where you can see what other neighboring municipalities do. On the low end, Raleigh notifies properties within 100 feet of the subject property, and the town of Cary notifies properties within 800 feet of the subject property. And this discussion was inspired, I really believe it was inspired during the early discussion of Tom's Creek. And I'm going to put on, if I can get my pointer going. So if you can see this hot pink square right there, it's very small. That is Ms. Jennings' business, Harvest Moon Trading. And there were some questions during that case about that's not within 200 feet of the property, but there are road improvements next to this business. You know, how is it okay that this business wasn't notified? So we had a discussion at the January 3rd town board meeting, and it wasn't any kind of official round of LDO amendments. It was just a preliminary discussion, and we talked about the different notification distances from neighboring municipalities and what we'd like to be doing here. And something I think pretty cool, one of our residents recommended that in addition to notifying properties within a certain distance, why aren't we notifying people that are adjacent to proposed roadway improvements? Because sometimes those roadway improvements that are recommended by a traffic impact analysis are off-site. And in the case of Harvest Moon Trading, it's a potential significant impact with the roadway improvements that could come along with Tom's Creek. And we talked about it, and we thought that was a really great suggestion. So the proposed amendment to the LDO includes changing the notification distance from 200 feet to 300 feet. And then in addition, you can see the new text is in blue. In addition, the owners of property adjacent to any roadway improvements associated with an application shall be similarly notified. So just for the benefit of new members, when we look at land development ordinance amendments, when we write them, we strike what is going to be taken out and typically do that in red so it stands out. And then we show the new text in blue and underline so we know what's happening.
Question on the notification of adjacent properties. How far up and down the road is that? So if they're just making a change, let's say in front of the Harvest Moon, right there, there's backup lanes, there's turn lanes, there's other pieces that get affected, but her property doesn't, the whole piece, right? So would you say within 100 feet of the road improvement on either side?
With how it's written now, it's just properties that are adjacent to any roadway improvements.
But that, to me, doesn't define how far down the adjacent.
It's just anything that doesn't matter how big it is, it's whatever is next to the road improvement. And if you think it would be better to have a distance, that would be a suggestion we could incorporate.
I would, because I think if you're making a small improvement in front of a piece of property, that's adjacent to the road improvement. If the road improvement stops there and the property next to it is not adjacent.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
you may just say extend it certain
Sure.
distance, so let that other person have a chance to
Okay.
say, hold on.
Okay.
You're gonna put a turn lane there, which means people are probably gonna back up in front of my house or my driveway or something along those lines.
Do you have a distance you'd recommend? Would it be 100 feet or
I would probably just say,
keep
well,
the same?
200 feet, or 100 to 200 feet is fine,
Okay.
I think, just.
I would
Okay.
say the same as we're doing for everything else. If it's 300,
And it's adjacency, so it's not depth, it's really just the people sitting on that road itself. I just want to make sure that they have a chance to say, you're going to put something in front of my house almost.
I wonder, what was I heard Cary 800 and I heard someone else,
Course of 5.
Yes.
who was that?
So Raleigh, I brought the slide back up. So Raleigh does 100 feet, Nightdale does 200 feet, Apex, Holly Springs do 300 feet, Wake Forest does 500 feet, and Cary does 800 feet.
I'd rather see it greater than less, myself personally, because we're still fairly rural in Rolesville, and it can impact some people further down. Whereas Raleigh, there's some density, and Wake Forest at 500, there's our neighbor right there. I'd rather see it more like 500 than 300. And I'd like the same thing for me on this adjacent roadway. If it's an intersection, anybody within 500 feet of that, that we notify. It may be more work for staff, but that's realistically who's going to get impacted. In the case of Burlington Mill and Forestville, those storage lanes are a few hundred feet back in there. So they're not going to know that at the time necessarily that they may not have done the traffic impact, or they're waiting, like in this Main Street case, they hadn't done it. So if we don't have it big enough, we're going to miss some opportunity for that public to be notified.
Okay,
I agree.
That's just my opinion.
sure.
I personally feel like the increase from the 200 to the 300 would be sufficient to capture the additional neighboring properties along with the off-site improvements. And one thing I'd like to see that maybe help capture a little bit as well is where we're limited to any, adjacent to any roadway improvements, is maybe include, any off-site utility improvements as well, because somebody may have to extend a water line down in front of a bunch of people's houses to access a property. So I think adding, any off-site utility improvements to this could help as well, get more people notified. But I'm personally, I think the 300 feet is probably, more than enough to get the notifications out.
Compromise to do 400.
When I take this to the town board, I can share that there was discussion that some board members thought it needed to be 500 and others thought 300 was okay, and that's fine, and they can take that into consideration.
Was this 300, was that a recommendation from the town board?
That's what we talked about in January with the town board as just a next step, but they hadn't heard from you all yet, so we'll see how that goes.
When you look at Tom's Creek, for example, you have those intersections, but there's the people that live down in the back of Tuckahoe and across the street that's going to impact that they come up to that intersection. So they're not getting notified if it's there, but they're going to have to come and live with those improvements. So we're not giving those folks an opportunity to necessarily know about this. So I think the more you include, the better it is for the public.
I agree, right? Better to have people come in to say, I don't care, or, get notified and say, I don't need to worry about it, than have them come in because they found out from a neighbor and nobody told them.
They didn't tell me.
The
And
opportunity is better.
Mr. Hill, you mentioned more work on staff. We actually do our very best to get the applicants to send the notification letter, so.
So there we go.
I do have a question, though. When Mike mentioned the utilities, like, utilities can go pretty far down the road, right?
They could.
Right, so how, and I don't dislike what you said, but I don't think I fully understand, how far would you go as far as the utilities? Like, take
I'd say
Rolesville Road.
anywhere they're extending utilities, like in Tom's Creek, for example, I know there's existing water lines in Forestville Road, so they won't have to extend water lines there. But on the Burlington Mills roadside, depending on where the city of Raleigh makes them bring water lines from, I mean, they could extend it all the way from Forestville Road up Burlington Mills and essentially be digging a trench in front of everybody's front yard along Burlington Mills.
Where's the water at now? Is it at the school?
Yeah, it stops at the school coming from town.
So that could be a half a mile.
If the city makes them do that, but.
We may or may not know the utility improvements at the concept plan stage. In some cases, yes, in some cases, no. So we could say if known.
All known improvements. Because sometimes they know, well, we've got to go down this part of the road to tie into water or sewer.
City of Raleigh's gonna like that tie-in and want that done.
I'm sure they will.
They bring some hydrants up there for fire and some other
But
stuff.
I think any utility, they send out basically dig letters or door hangers type deal before they place anyways, so that kind of, at the time,
At the time
within
of
a few weeks
construction.
before they, say if it's telephone, cable TV, power, gas, they're all gonna
But in this
notify
case,
the
we're talking
residents.
major water line, and you got rock, and they had to go out and blast or do some major work at the road.
Yeah.
That could be disruptive to some folks that might want to pay attention to that.
And there is a blasting notification that goes out anyways. We get the notifications at the fire department for the
Right.
blasting notifications when needed, so.
I think
So
a lot of
how
those
far
notifications
back?
come after the fact, though. I mean, this is like pre-approval. I mean, all those other notifications always come after the fact, which by that time, everybody's going to be complaining about not being told and not being informed, which is why I think if we do extend the perimeter along whatever has known improvements, I think is definitely worth the change.
So my issue is if we have to do, let's take Harvest Moon and that intersection. If they have to take property, then they're going to use eminent domain and take some of their property. I think it's not fair for one landowner to benefit, in this case, the developer, and then the other person be slighted and not know about it and then have to fight after the fact. So the more that people have that opportunity to protect their own interest, I think it's better. And so I just would see us like to do more. If Cary's 800, they're pretty big. They're thinking a lot. There's some reason for that.
Bad reputation over the years.
I used to work there, and I know why they do that, if you'd like to know. Perfect. They chose to do, well, can see if you think I'm right. I was always told in planning that they chose to do the large notification area because they did not want residents showing up saying they didn't know about it. That was
There we
the
go.
philosophy in the planning department. But it was a big pile of letters.
You know, I remember next to Rolesville High School, Donnie, you have to help me. If you pass Rolesville High School, is it Sunset something?
Sunset Manor.
So I remember there were a lot of complaints coming out of there because,
It was Raleigh actually zoned that one, they messed up and they went to Raleigh and zoned that one rather than coming to us.
okay, 'cause I remember the complaints
Yeah,
that
because
were
it was
coming through.
completely not us.
Because it wasn't just the people who were impacted on the corner, but those further back in the neighborhood. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Are you saying 300 to 500 feet back there as well? Or just on the main street where the utilities are going to rest?
My suggestion is just where the utility is going to
Gotcha.
be at.
All right, thank you.
And does this also just go to property owners as opposed to neighborhoods? Because when we get into more HOAs, the whole entire neighborhood could be affected by a road improvement in front of the neighborhood, not just the 4 or 5 homes that might be impacted by that diameter. So is that something that anybody feels needs to be articulated as well?
There was a question at the board meeting about HOA's responsibility, but I think it came back to how does the town police that? You know, you can tell your HOA that you're gonna have this work done, but at the end of the day, if they don't notify the people who live in the neighborhood.
Right, that totally is on them. I'm just trying to think if there's one house that happens to be on the perimeter of this circle that we're drawing, and it's one house that's in an HOA, does the HOA also have to be informed as well as that one single house? Not every single house in the HOA, but at least the HOA, so that the HOA can determine whether or not the change that's being proposed is impactful enough to consider a comment.
I guess that's a board of 5 question. I don't know.
That's why I'm asking my fellow board members what they feel, because they have more experience than I do. But that's just what I'm thinking.
I mean, I would think the HOA would be included in the notification from the applicant, correct? Is that,
It depends on, right now, it depends on if it's within that boundary. You know, a lot of times the neighborhoods with HOAs have property that's owned and maintained by the HOA. So if that's one of the parcels that's notified, yes. And Shelley was just telling me something, but I'm not good at reading lips.
It was discussed adding that in, yes, adding in the HOA contact.
Okay.
That way they would be notified.
Well, in the case of Tuckahoe, there is no HOA over there. It's an older community, so if you only did 300 feet, and it was just to take again Tom's Creek, because we're talking about that, that's only 2 houses. Those are acre lots, 3/4 acre lots. You're not talking very many people getting noticed on that, notified on that.
yeah, and
Go on
well,
that
and I
side.
guess I look at I guess at Tom's Creek, it was gonna tie into Tuckahoe over at Eagles Roost, I think, or
There's an outlet. I don't think it was actually going to go into it.
thought that neighborhood's gonna tie into, I thought that was
don't
gonna
think
tie
so.
into it. Maybe I was looking at it wrong. I know Rocky Top or all that was gonna tie in, so yeah.
No, it was going to have another outlet, but I don't think it had a,
Yeah,
I don't think it's.
Tuckahoe
there's no
doesn't have
spur
that.
on there.
Yeah.
Tuckahoe, okay. So I don't know if that would, I mean, if it would work itself out, if they were gonna tie in, there would be within the 300 to 500 feet, whatever the decision's made.
Yeah, I think there would just be a portion of Tuckahoe that would be included. But, I mean, I think, I mean, we went from 100 to 200, now proposing 300 just in the last couple of years. And we went from 100 to 200 because people were getting left out. Now we're going from 200 to 300. And I think any distance we have, there's always going to be somebody who feel like they get left out. And whether we go to 300, 500, or 1,000, I think there's always going to be somebody on the outer edge of where we notify.
Don't disagree, but I think if we show that we're being pretty wide and generous with sending out that notification to a wide level, can't notify the entire town every time we put something out there.
If our neighbor at Wake
Well,
Forest is 500 and we're only 3 and other ones are there, I
That's
would
right.
rather be close to that
I would
than-
rather be closer to the Wake Forest folks because we're similar in that sense. Plus,
Yep.
when you start getting over to the other side of the bypass, right past the high school and all that, there's properties that are 500 feet.
Yeah.
Right? So I may be over to the guy on one side and the guy on the other side, and that's it. Even though that the large development can go into that area. Because that's where still a lot of property is.
All right.
Although we all talk to each other. So my preference would be exactly what Steve said, is get to that 500 range.
I guess that can be noted in a motion if we get to that point.
What, did you go back and rewrite it? Because we talked about, there was pieces of the 500 feet of notification, there was pieces on the land for improvements, for utilities, and then there was also for any road improvements. That's a bunch of ads in that space. My recommendation is come back with an
Okay,
updated version.
Is there a motion to
Make that
table?
a motion.
I'll make that a motion.
To-
I'd like to make a motion that staff goes back and rewrites this to take into consideration the distance that we discussed at the board level, the notification of people who are affected by road improvements within a certain distance, and then utility improvements.
And I'd like to add HOA contact as well, if involved.
And I would like to see it, there for me, is whatever we pick with the notification, that any road improvement have the same thing and not two
Okay.
different numbers. So somebody says, well, it's 300 here, 500 here, but
As amended.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion
As
as
amended.
amended with the additional comments.
I'll second it.
We have a second from Mr. Hill. All in favor, say aye.
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 Nah.
All opposed? Okay, I guess it's back on y'all's court, Meredith.
great, thank you. I've got homework.
Right. Okay, next we go to communications. First up is the planning director's report.
Okay, well, wanted to give you all an update on your previous recommendations. So I'm going back to the September meeting, because it's kind of funny that we looked at the same cases in October and December. Remember, we didn't have a November meeting. But back at your September meeting, we heard 503 South Main Street, and you got that back tonight, so you know what's going on with that. Also, back at your September meeting, you saw Parker Ridge, and that is the residential rezoning case that is near the food line, on the south side of the food line, with the circle in the middle, and it has some townhomes and then some single-family cluster homes. And you all recommended approval of that. And when it went to the town board, they were not comfortable with the traffic impact analysis and wanted to see School Street further studied, and you all did have comments on that. And they also wanted to look at the applicant making a connection from the property over to Young Street. So Stantec Consulting, who did the TIA, is doing additional work on that TIA, and we expect to have that, we were calling it a TIA refresh. We expect to have that traffic impact analysis refresh within a few days. And we'll take a look at that, and right now, as long as we get that back and are able to take a look at that, we're going to take that case to the February 7th Town Board meeting. And 5109 Mitchell Mill Road, that's what you see in the picture on this slide. That was approved January 17th by the town board, and that had been continued to get the conditions worked out a little more. And the applicant did put in some effort to work through those conditions and refine those, and town board approved that case. And then LDO Round 3 was in front of you in September, And I don't remember if I told you this or not before, the land development ordinance files that are on the town's website are all updated and fresh and have the latest updates or the amendments from rounds 1, 2, and 3. So if you want to look at the LDO, I would suggest looking at the one online, and I'm happy to get you all new copies of that after we get round 4 done, because I know you have copies from before, and I think it'd be easier just to get you a fresh one so you have the latest and greatest. At our December meeting, we said goodbye to Mark Powers, and we looked at 207 North Main Street. That's the property that was, or is zoned general industrial, and the applicant was asking for it to be zoned to commercial. And you all recommended approval, and that will be on the February 7th Town Board agenda. And then we talked about Tom's Creek a little bit at the beginning of the meeting. You all tabled that at your last meeting. The applicant needs some more time to address the questions you asked, so you'll see that at your February meeting, as long as they get those answers. It sounded like they were optimistic they could get those. And then we also looked at the Jones Dairy storage case. And that was the property on Jones Dairy Road next to Jones Dairy Elementary. You all recommended approval on that, and that will be at the February 7th Town Board meeting if you want to keep tabs on that. And let's see, I think I had something else. I want to make sure I got everything. Our staff has been working on a year-end report, and we're still doing some QA, QC, and some editing on that, so we'll have that for you hopefully at your next meeting. And I wanted to ask you about training. I know we have 2 new members, and it's always great to have a training refresh. And we have really, we've had some pretty full agendas. Wanted to see if you all would be available to come in one day or before one planning board meeting at 6 or 6:30, so we'd have a little extra time to do some training. I don't know if that would be an option in the coming months, or if you'd rather just keep the meeting at 7 and know that you'll have training and it might go a little long that particular evening.
I'd rather come in earlier myself if it was up to me, but
I would come in early.
I'd be available.
Okay,
I would as well.
okay.
The town manager going to provide food?
I'll tell him he has to.
we'll be here by 5 then.
Yeah, you tell me what works for you. I think the earlier the better, because, I start getting tired after 9.
AM?
Some days, yes.
I was going to ask that too. 6 p.m. is fine for me. I mean, I don't know how much training there is, so I can't, speculate on how much time you need.
We'll try to keep it to a reasonable time, because I think if it goes past a certain time, it could lose its effectiveness. So, let's plan for an hour for training. And then if we need more, we'll address it then.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, we'll look at when we're ready for that and schedule that one at 6, and I'll give you all plenty of notice.
And you'll let them know if dinner's going to be served. But I will be on Kelly tomorrow.
Okay, if you can help me with
Because
that.
it makes a big difference versus going
yeah.
home to eat dinner.
Right,
versus
you
coming
know what, it
here.
absolutely does. And I'm a fan of certain places. Although one of my favorite places is not open on Mondays. So I'll find something.
All right. I have a question back on the Jonesville property development project. Did the town have any additional conversations about or did the developer first still extend the opportunity for the town to acquire parcels? And did the town discuss that at all, or did they just say, okay, we'll think about it?
They did work on that condition. The open space condition got a lot more detailed and has more parts to it.
Okay.
And I missed that meeting, so I don't remember every detail off the top of my
I haven't
head.
watched it yet.
I know they put in that they would make the offer to the town, and the town could choose to accept it or not.
All right. I also had, when I was doing the TRC for that, I had asked for a crosswalk at the bridge.
They
Did include that?
They added a condition that as long as NCDOT would allow them to do it, they would do it.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the 5109, right?
Yes.
Jamil? So is that actually annexed into Rolesville now? And
Yes.
But
That-
there's no name for the subdivision, is it, or is it? Not
Still, no name that I'm aware of. Some people call it Jonesville, some people call it 5109 Mitchell Mill Road, but yes, the rezoning and annexation were both approved on January 17th.
And they're donating a house, a townhouse for.
Yeah, full, yeah.
It's not just for veterans, it's for anybody who's going to qualify, but I'm not sure what the stipulations are for that, but I'm excited.
Mhm.
That's
That's awesome.
Good conversation with that. And $60,000 to go towards a veteran fund for housing. And I'm just excited about that townhome. It's just one, but somebody will get it, and that will make a difference.
Absolutely.
All right,
That concludes my report.
all right, thank you. Next is the town attorney's report. All right, well, thank you. Is there any other business any board members have? Nope. Hearing none, I'll go on to our last item on the agenda, adjournment.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion? Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is adjourned. Or, motion's carried, the meeting is adjourned. All right, thank you.
Reports.